The NFL trade deadline is here. What, if anything, will the Cowboys realistically do?
Let's go get Roquan Smith.
No, he already. I feel like
that's a really good move.
I feel like you already knew that. That happened yesterday.
Oh.
The Ravens acquired Roquan Smith for a second, a fifth, and AJ Klein.
All right. If I'm
The
looking
Bears
at
are also paying most of his
I
salary.
bet if you offer Baltimore a first and a fourth, they'll do it.
To your point on that, by the way, Kevin, to your point on the Bears paying most of his salary, that deadline was yesterday at 3:59 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
For any of the contracts to take over those. So anything now, any trade that's made, the Cowboys take on the contract. There's no restructuring available. So there's none of that like A-Rod, we're going to pay him $600 million for whatever years. Like there's none of that going on.
Okay.
Wilt Chamberlain of them.
So, but for me, if they're going to make a move today, Kevin, and I'm kind of curious about this because of the way Bland plays, it should be for a cornerback. Go get another cornerback that can be a lockdown guy for you across from Diggs, and this team's a championship contender.
So, and just for the salary thing, and I wanted to touch on that real quick, and that's a great point that you brought up. It looks like the Cowboys, depending on which source you trust, have about $6.5 to $8 million in cap space. All right, so if you prorate that for about half the season, that means they could absorb a player that's making between $13 and $16 million. So I would be willing to wager, like the Cowboys could trade for most of the players in the NFL, just in terms of absorbing the salary cap hit. Now, draft assets and everything that you want to give up, that's a totally different story.
How bad, I don't know how to put this. How bad, or what's the number, what's the scale, the percentage that you want the Cowboys to trade for what? And then are you specific as a Cowboys fan on who you want them to trade for?
Not necessarily right now, but like let's just say a Jeff Okudah type player, Kevin, who we saw was really good in the run stop the other day. $8 million. He's $8 million this year. Like there's a range of cornerbacks, Mike, that fall exactly in the category that I think the Cowboys would benefit from having over Anthony Brown, who is fine. He's fine, but I'm like looking at this going, can I upgrade that? Like Deron Bland, that's my thing is he just looks too good. You're looking at this guy going, how did you land this player? How does this work? And you want to get him as many opportunities as possible, and he's going to in the slot for sure. But can you secure your outside and get an upgrade over Anthony Brown? Absolutely, I think you can.
I have a very specific player that I would like to trade for, and I'm at an 8. I would like to trade for Cedric Wilson. Now, hear me out.
The wide receiver?
That's right. I know people are caught up on Amari Cooper, and I get that. Obviously, a phenomenal game yesterday, with the exception of his passing ability. But the rest of it was phenomenal. Cedric Wilson might as well not even exist with the Miami Dolphins. All right? They don't want him. They don't use him. He doesn't want to be there. He's not being used. Why don't you come on back home? It wouldn't cost you very much. And Lord knows, and we talked about this, the Dak Prescott and Cedric Wilson can get a connection going, especially when it comes to the end zone. I think Cedric Wilson is somebody that you could make a move for that would cost very little.
And how much did he sign for with Miami?
It's 8 a year? Let me go double check that.
I mean, I'm wondering what the discount you get on that, because obviously the Cowboys, if they wanted him, could have kept him at that number.
Yes.
I think he would have signed
7
back.
a year.
So I hear what you're saying. I like what you're saying because he's a proven player for the Dallas Cowboys under this head coach, under this quarterback, under this offensive coordinator. But the Cowboys 6 months ago approximately said, we are not paying you that much money. We don't believe you are worth that much money. So now you're going to pay him that much money and send I'm going to assume like a conditional 6th round pick.
I do not think it would be very high, yes.
So you're not sending much of a pick. You're sending a late round pick. But now you're saying after he played so bad with his new team, you're now willing to pay him the number that you weren't willing to pay 6 months ago?
And here's the reason for that is because after the season is over, he is on a 1-year, $8 million deal. Okay. Like after the season is over. And so I think the reason why I think they're willing to do it, Mike, is for all of the things that have worked out for the Cowboys. Because obviously, moving on from Lyle Collins worked out just fine. You feel good about how that's going. Moving on from Randy Gregory, that's worked out just fine. Actually, that has worked out really, really well. Moving on from Amari Cooper, and I know what Jerry said the other day. He was like, hey, look, Michael Gallup's only got 2 games with Dak Prescott. And I thought Michael Gallup, we talked about this yesterday, was the spark to get the offense going. But with Noah Brown obviously kind of hurt, you've seen ups and downs from him. Cedric Wilson is somebody that I think you could move in for a cheap price. And so, like to Mike's point, maybe it's a conditional 6, and then after this, it's a 1-year, $8 million deal. I think that's somebody who works in the system. And the other reason I'm willing to take a shot on it, Mike, is I think the metrics have changed. Because I think going into this season, a lot of us were like, yeah, this is a hold steady season and start to build ahead. Now it looks like a season where you're like, hey, do you think maybe we could win the Super Bowl? Because that's what Steven and Jerry are saying.
How much better do you think he is than Noah Brown?
Quite a bit.
Okay. I guess we don't know about James Washington. I know we both weren't like huge fans. We're like, hey, he's a person.
And that's exactly what I feel. But the other thing is, I thought Cedric Wilson last year showed his ability to get the ball in the end zone. And like that, and
obviously Jalen Tolbert's not making any progress during the season.
Yeah, which is a weird thing. And I see people who are with you, Corey, about the defensive player, and I totally get that, because they think you can make your run at Odell Beckham. And remember, when we had Jerry on Friday, he was like, I have great respect for the player that Odell Beckham is. If he's interested in coming here as opposed to going to the Bills, well, then obviously I would be willing to listen to that. And that's somebody whose number I think you could fit into the cap here just fine.
I did see that the Washington football team, the Commanders, as they're called, Kevin, are taking, I think it's William Jackson III. They're taking calls. But
because he said he wanted to trade,
they said they would let him go if nobody trades for him, and that's always wild to me.
Idea.
And that's what
say that out loud.
And that's what blew up for the Cowboys with Amari Cooper. Is everybody in the world knew that if they didn't trade for Amari Cooper, they were just going to release him. I'm not here to argue that that was a smart trade in terms of value whatsoever. I just liked it because I was like, well, we told everyone we were going to release him, so I guess at least we got something for him.
Yeah. Offensive line, are you good there? Are you comfortable there right now?
I think
with Tyron Smith coming back in maybe a month or so, based on what he told you guys yesterday,
yeah,
for the meat of the season.
Yeah, and it's always for the meat of the season. And then Steven said, he was like, look, when you have somebody like that, he goes, we haven't had those discussions yet, but then went on to say essentially, well, obviously he's going to get his job back. And so if that's the case, then if you slide Tyler inside to the left guard, then you have your McGovern and you have your Peters depth. And so, look, I am not against getting more offensive and defensive linemen. I just don't, that is not as pressing to me as your cornerback or as a wide receiver. Is it because I said, yeah, I got it?
No. I like what you said. How much are you guys willing to trade the 2023 first-round pick?
Yep, I am.
Man, that has to be a significant player. If I'm gonna do that, obviously, Mike, this is just like in pit.
Would you trade Jeff Okudah for it?
No,
that's not.
I mean,
the
I
player.
know he was the 3rd overall pick, and I know he's had injuries and stuff like that.
I feel like it's going to cost more, but like Ramsey is what I'm kind of looking at there. Like I'm looking at that tier of player if I'm going to give up a first-round pick.
And to your point, Mike, I don't have somebody in mind, although now I see DK Metcalf's name popping up a lot. But if I'm Seattle, I'm like, I'm going to stay the course with what's working there. I don't have somebody in mind. My point is, I feel like you have a real shot this season. Now, the Eagles might stomp that out, or down the line, maybe the Chiefs or Bills would stomp that out, or maybe even the 49ers. But I look at this team, and I do kind of wonder if this team has got a shot. And that's why I would be willing to part with my first-round pick. But I didn't think that through in terms of but only for these people. I would listen. And I see Jerry Jeudy coming up, and I've actually seen a couple of people already saying they would give up the 1.
I might give up
Okudah.
a 2 for Okudah, but the 1 I'm a different level player for a number 1 or first round draft pick.